Hi there, I'm Liz Eggleston and I run Course Report, which is a resource for choosing the right bootcamp for you. If you haven't used Course Report yet, then this is my one shameless plug. We have over 20,000 alumni reviews, Q&As with alumni and bootcamp instructors, a lot of research and videos like this one. And today I am joined by Jamil, who took the UX Design Immersive Bootcamp at General Assembly. Thanks so much for being here, Jamil.
Thank you.
And Jamil graduated from General Assembly about 1 year ago, a little over that, and now has a really successful career in UX design, which we'll talk about later. But I've got a lot of questions about his final project that he worked on at GA, because we get questions all the time about what you'll actually be able to build during a boot camp, how far a boot camp will actually get you, especially if you're a beginner and especially at a UX bootcamp, because at a coding bootcamp, you know, you come up with an idea and then you build it with a team, but UX projects are a little bit different. And so I'm really excited to hear about Jamil's. But Jamil, before we actually look at your project, I'm curious about what you were doing before General Assembly. What kind of education did you have? What was your career looking like? What were you up to?
Yeah, so in 2014, I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Information Technology, but I was specializing in digital arts. And then I've worked as a graphic designer, and then I moved to San Francisco and got a front-end developer job. And then right when I was looking into going into UX, I was working at a media company, handling their website for their film festival. And with that, I tried to like learn myself how to do UX and apply it there. But since it was just me, I didn't really know if it was right or no. So I looked into getting into UX design classes.
That actually makes a lot of sense. When I was looking at your LinkedIn, I was like, you have a degree in digital arts, which seems kind of like UX design. You worked as a front-end developer. Like, why do you feel like you needed to like pay the money, commit the time, do a formal UX bootcamp?
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to get into UX since I was having a tough time looking into design jobs. That's why I was getting developer jobs, because there was not much competition, mostly with startups that are trying to save money. So when it came to UX, I would apply some stuff, but like micro interactions when I like build something, I would test it out and then see like myself, like I'm not having a good experience with this. Like, this is weird. So I would do it myself, even though we would have a UX designer, graphic designer doing the designs. Yeah, so I wanted to be able to get a job in UX, since most of the jobs here in design are transforming more into product design, UX, more than print. And yeah.
Got it. So you were kind of doing UX design like in your job day to day, but you weren't a full-on UX designer. I feel like that's probably an experience that a lot of people have. Cool. So then did you research other UX boot camps, or did you have your heart set on GA General Assembly from the beginning? Like, why did you end up choosing the GA UX boot camp?
Yeah, so General Assembly was the one I knew about, but then I still looked into a few more, like 2 or 3 that were here in San Francisco. I've looked into the prices. Like, there are free ones online, but then you're not like held accountable for like if you do the work or not. I did go with General Assembly because I really liked the part at the end where they help you into looking into jobs. They don't necessarily like connect you, but they help you like how does the interview process go like. And since I was struggling looking for jobs, even though I had the experience, that was a really big part why I went with GA.
Got it. That makes sense. Were you looking to learn like specific tools and like technologies when you were looking at the curriculum at all, or was it more about like the career prep and the like kind of career path?
Yeah, it was more in the career path.
Okay, cool. So then I know it was over a year ago, so I'm sure things have changed, and maybe you don't remember exactly day to day what it was like, but
Mhm.
what was the learning experience like at GA? Like, tell us about a typical day. What did the curriculum cover? What was it like to learn there?
Yeah, I was actually nervous going into it since it was not just the boot camp. I was, I did not know a clue about. It was more on like, what's the educational experience here in this country compared to what I've experienced in the Philippines.
Did you
But
do your undergrad in the Philippines?
yeah,
Okay.
did everything. So this is my only education here in the US. But once we got into it, everything was just so fun. A day to day would be our instructors love that we are part of it. So like make sure that we ourselves share something since we like most of the class, they're different backgrounds.
Mm.
So every day one person would have to do a 15-minute warm up. They could do anything. It could be a game. It could be design related. And then we go into a lecture, and then after every lecture or between like different topics, we would have to do an activity that would lead into a project for that section of the course.
Do you remember how the curriculum was like set up? What the modules were? Like, what did you start with, and
Mhm.
what did you kind of build into learning?
Yeah, I don't necessarily remember, but we covered the basics during the first weeks so that we could apply it in the first project because the project starts day one.
Mm.
And so you need to learn something like at least most of the basics to apply into that project. And then as every project came by, we applied more into like what other topics we learned. So let's say in design thinking, we start with research. So we made sure that there was research in every project, and
Mm.
then like just extra activities that were added into each project afterward.
And who were your instructors? Were they like UX designers themselves, or were they more like lifelong teachers? Like, who was actually teaching?
Yeah, they were UX designers.
Mm.
One of them is Shalom Ormsby, and he was at Autodesk before that.
Oh, cool.
And then the other one was Lauren Golden, who I don't know the exact company she worked at, but she was a big researcher in financial industry, I think.
Oh, interesting.
Mhm.
That's cool. We don't have to get too far into it, but how
Mhm.
did you find the difference between like a boot camp style education and your undergrad in the Philippines? Like, was it totally night and day, or were you like, how did you find it?
When you say night and day, like working, like how much work I had
Yeah,
to
I
put.
guess like sure, work, the time commitment, or the kind of learning style or teaching style. Um,
Mhm.
was it super different than the type of education that you were used to?
Not that different.
Yeah,
So it's basically, yeah, the lecture and then the activities, like cutting it down into something that can be absorbed really easily.
mm,
When it comes to the work, I probably worked more when I was at the boot camp than I was in school. But it was more because I just really wanted to do a good job since everything's so, the time is like shorter and you have to fit in 5 projects. So you would have to like be working like most of the nights, like
right.
weekends you can let go, but most of the nights I was just staying up late.
That makes sense. Also, like if your goal is to get a job after you graduate, then you've got something to look towards at the end of those
Yeah.
2 or 3 months.
Mhm.
Okay, so you mentioned those projects that you did throughout the curriculum, and you did 5 projects throughout
Mhm.
the boot camp. So could you, we don't have to go through all of them, but could you
Mhm.
share your screen and show us your final group project?
Yeah. Mhm. So it's in my portfolio. Go into it. Um, so it is for this startup called Pangea Health. So
Mm-hmm.
Pangea Health is a startup that does um, birth control delivery.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so they came to us. The school general assembly found our instructors found some companies to work with, and then they introduced us. They brought them in for our initial like interview with them, like
Mm-hmm.
what's the company all about, what are their asks. So particularly with them, they asked us to look into their beta online form. So this is all from like signing up until I can get my prescription or my prescription delivered.
Right.
And actually, they also asked if we had more time, we could look into the homepage and just seeing like what should be shown there. Is the design like good? What was out of the scope was the branding itself.
Mm.
But since it is a project that we were going to present on our portfolio, we took the initiative and like just applied some branding into it.
Oh, cool. You
Yeah.
actually did some of the like design work for it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So GA like set that up, and did they have multiple companies that like different groups were working with?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So I think they keep contact with multiple startups. So I think some of the teams. So this is a team. It is a group project
Yeah.
with three other designers in my class. So I don't know exactly, but there are around 3 to 4 teams maybe, and some of them had like the companies have worked with General Assembly students in the past, so
Got
like
it.
keep in touch. Yeah.
Well, I think just like the fact that you were working with a real company on like a real existing product, even if it was in beta, is already makes that just different from a coding bootcamp project, because
Mhm.
you'd be kind of like thinking of your own idea and then building it. But it's
Yeah.
so cool that you got to like actually look at something that already existed and
Mhm.
do work on that. Were
Yeah.
you working with Pangea Health, like a project manager from their team every day, or how did you approach like working with the client?
They assigned someone to just manage or just be the point person if
Mm-hmm.
we had any questions or we needed anything or schedule any meetings with stakeholders. But the startup's pretty small, and we were working closely with the CEO and the CTO of the company.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. So you worked with three other designers.
Mhm.
And how was that like collaborating as a group on a project? Like now that you are a real product designer,
Mhm.
did it feel like it is what it feels like in the real world?
Yeah, totally. What's different here is that you have 4 designers working together.
Mm,
Usually, where I am now, there would be someone leading it, but since this is a group project, you're all on the same level.
mm-hmm.
So, but luckily, we all like got along with each other, and we all brought different skills to the table. So it just made sense, like who should do what. So we just divide and conquer. There no clashes, and everything worked great.
Okay, so you said who would do what. So what did you actually do? Like what does a UX design project actually entail?
Yeah. So particularly with this one, since they asked for us to look into their online forums, they were saying that their current one, they in their analytics, they were saying that there have been a lot of drop-offs, so people not finishing and just exiting. So the UX designer's job is to look into why why these problems are happening, and like basically the biggest part that's missing with Pandia is being able to validate and ask and show the users before they actually release it so they can
Mm.
prevent these problems. So first things first is research, always research. So the company was really helpful. We asked for participants. So we asked, so we could do our own recruiting with people that are not users, currently users. So we could just ask people that fit into their target audience. But we asked them to provide us 10 users that currently using Pangea Health,
Cool.
so that we could see, since they have signed up in the current design they have, we wanted to see what was their experience with that. Since if we just tested straight into the beta, we can't really find out the problems that they were trying to solve in the first one. So we kept the first one and tested it with the users, current users, and like people who are not, to see and compare, and also ask like what did make you sign up for this, since we were asking also other people, why did you drop off?
Right.
Yeah.
And did you end up delivering, like, what did you deliver to the client at the end of the project? Did you deliver like new wireframes or just suggestions for things? Like, how did you actually help the company that you're working with?
Yeah, well, everything is a suggestion, but we did provide them with all the designs that we came up with. They reached out afterwards asking for the illustrations, and they even paid for them because
cool.
they really liked the design. But in the interaction, and so let's say the online forms, we like highlighted some problems within their forms that they actually solved and are implemented right now.
Cool. Oh, I see.
I
cool.
can show you
Wow.
the form.
Yeah.
Not the forms, to the float. So
Sure.
I like tested their beta site and came up with this form, just trying to show like the different paths and like how many pages does the user have to go through. And we strategized by where the goal was trying to make the steps fewer. And to do that, we looked into what was being asked in every page. Is there a way we can combine these pages, since some of them are just one question pages? So we got to cut it down into, I forgot the numbers, but from a total of 22 pages, we cut them down to 7.
Dang.
I also don't know where I'm heading because there's no indication where I am in the process. So that's one of the other features we added into this, was the, what's it called? The progress tracker.
Oh, yeah. I was trying to think of the same thing. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So then the prototype like seems pretty workable that you delivered back. That's really neat. Yeah. So you used Sketch for this and InVision?
Yes, exactly.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Could you tell us maybe like about a roadblock or a challenge that you faced? Well, actually first, how long did it take to do the project?
This was a 2.5-week project.
Okay.
That's including the final presentation.
So over those 2.5 weeks, like, did you run into a roadblock or a challenge while you were building it and doing it? And like, how did y'all overcome that as a team working with like your first client?
Yeah, I think one of the ones I remember, well, there's two. The first one was when I found out our team was assigned this company. Well, it wasn't assigned, it was randomized, to be fair to all the teams. But in my team, I was the only guy. And I was like, I don't know anything about birth control. I wasn't that excited. But then when we started doing the research, at first I was nervous to be even asking women about their birth control preferences and all of those. But then I don't think they had any problems. I was worried that they wouldn't feel comfortable and not give us the right answers, or even be
Mm.
confident enough to answer these. But then it worked out fine. I actually know so much about birth control now. And
Having
then,
that like diversity of thought, like if it had been all women working on it, or, you know, God forbid, all men working on it, like I'm sure that the project would have turned out differently.
yeah, yeah. It also shows that even if you are not part of that, let's say, audience,
Mm-hmm.
right? You could still have empathy. So that's one thing we learn at General Assembly, or I don't know, maybe UX in general, everywhere. They want you to have empathy to the user so that you can design for that as well. Like if you don't feel for them, like why would you even do a good job or even try working on this? And my instructor said, take advantage of it. Your first project, or you said in your startup, it was college admissions, and I didn't even know what SATs were. He said, I want you to do the same thing, and let's see. Yeah, it worked.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And then,
Thank you for mentioning that.
mhm. And then the second one was, so there were questions when we were testing out the website. There were questions that um, the users were having a hard time answering.
Mm.
And we didn't know what to do. We wanted to take it out, but
Like
then we didn't
what?
know if it was something important. So we asked the CEO, and I was like, what is the reason for asking this question? Is this
Mm.
really necessary for the prescription? And then they said, oh, it's more for data gathering.
Mm-hmm.
So we found a way to solve for both. So the question I was just talking about, so this
Mm-hmm.
is it. So it's asking how
Mm.
frequently do you have your period?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the only question. And it says it's usually 32 days. Like then, so we tested it and people just got stuck and they were like, well, that's why I'm trying to get birth control because my flow, my period's not frequent or
Got
um,
it.
yeah. So we told them it was like they're either gonna lie, you're not gonna get clean data, or they're gonna stop. So we said, how? Let's add another question. Do you know it? If yes, then perfect. You can answer, and we can gather the data. If not, that's fine, totally fine. We don't. The users don't have to worry about it.
That's really smart.
And to fast forward at Chase, I'm working, and we've been hiring other designers, and I've been part of the panel. And we were talking about this researcher that couldn't answer what their favorite insight was. And the hiring manager like looked at me and was like, remember when you interviewed that question? And he repeated this exact scenario and remembered it, and he was like, that got you like a big chance in getting this role you have right
How
now.
cool.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
that's amazing.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's such great feedback to get from your hiring manager too.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so then you obviously added this project to your portfolio. It
Mhm.
obviously helped during job interviews. That was going to be my next question, but
Mhm.
clearly your hiring manager, it stood out to them, which is really
Mhm.
cool. And today you are a product designer at Chase.
Yeah.
So cool. You've been
Mhm.
there for just over a year.
Yeah.
So, okay, so tell us about the job. I'm going to ask you what the difference is between a product designer and a UX designer, so we can get
Mhm.
that out of the way if you want to.
Mhm.
But what is your job like today? What do you work on?
Yeah, so I work for Chase Product Design. I work specifically in the real estate section of the company. So they brought in people from tech to look into providing more value to our real estate clients.
Cool.
So perfectly, I got hired when the team was just starting. We have increased so much in the past year. And when it comes to product design versus UX design, to me, it's mostly the role, and it depends on like what the role for that specific company has mentioned, like, or listed as your responsibilities. But outside work, I would say when people say UX design, it's like the basics. Like product design would be a level up, I would say. It's because product design specifically um, contains or asks you to be part of the product from end to end. So all the way from starting the research into all the way to designing it, and also keep reiterating once it launches to improve on it.
Got it. That is a very clear explanation. I feel like this is because UX design just in general is a new-ish role to begin with. Like it can be tough to differentiate between that, but that's a great explanation.
Yeah, the roles don't really, it's more on the responsibilities that you should look into than the roles. Like if you're looking into a job, put it in like your search. It doesn't matter if you have experience or not product design. Maybe they just put it as product design, the roles, the responsibilities you're qualified to do.
Right. That's really good advice. In your professional career now, I'm curious if you work, it sounds like you would work with developers and folks that are actually like building the project. Do you think that it has been helpful that you did front-end development before you learned UX design? Like, do those skills go together, or do you not really use those?
Yeah, so whenever I interview people, of course, at General Assembly, they made us learn how to use your past experiences and how can you use that in your interviews to sell yourself. So perfectly, front end is not that far from UX design when it comes to like the industry, right? So whenever I interview, I would always mention I'm a front end developer in the past, and how does that help me? It helps me communicate. Like, of course, you could always say like, I can do it if you want me to, but that's never going to be the case. What I say is that it helps me communicate with developers, since like it is the next step after you design something. It helps you communicate. And perfectly, in my team right now, one of our front-end developers used to be a designer. So it's just perfect so it's not just like good for our side, but also for the front-end developer side to know the design like lingo and even have experience in it is great.
I feel like that makes you a unicorn in this world to like understand like the coding side of it and the UX design side of it. That's amazing. What a cool skill set. So, okay, so now it's been about a year since you got this job. Is this job what you expected when you when you decided to do a UX boot camp? Like, are you happy with this career change? Is this where you wanted to be a year ago?
Yes. I don't know if I expected the same thing, but it turned out closely as what I was doing at General Assembly. It was, like, again, like, it all depends. Like, my day-to-day is not the same. I sometimes even don't touch my laptop because I'm just doing interviews. I've been doing research more. And also just going on the whiteboard and ideating and trying to see like what's the best solution for what I'm doing.
You mentioned before that General Assembly like didn't say that they were going to guarantee you a job when you graduated, but that they had that career kind of service at the end of the program. So how did they prepare you for job hunting? And like, do you have advice for other folks that are going through that process? All the other boot campers out there that are approaching the job hunt?
I think specifically with me, since I had prior experience in different industries or different roles, I struggled with how to advertise myself. Like, what am I really? Because since I moved here, I was just trying to like throw all my skills at these companies and be like, hey, I can do this job. But then my instructor was like, I don't really know what you want because you're mentioning all these things. So they made sure that I focus on one thing and like advertise that thing. And I don't have to forget about the rest. I can use those to like I want to be a UX designer and I know front end developing and animation, let's say. And these help me become a better UX designer in this way. Other things would be how when you're in like a job interview phase and applying, like being able to track all of them, not just going every day and just send applications, the same application. They want you to tailor it each application, like your resume or your cover letter, into that specific role you're looking into, and also tracking like, okay, I applied for this, I got a reply from this, I got a decline. So that actually helped me a lot because
like you did it in a spreadsheet.
Yeah, spreadsheet.
Cool.
Exactly. That helped me like keep in touch and or like ask again, ask for follow-ups. What else? Yeah.
Do you
then
like,
that also
they like
made sure that I was applying
go
enough.
ahead.
Yeah.
Made sure that you were applying. And did they like help you prep? Like, how do you even prep for a UX design interview? You said you talked about your final project. Was it a lot about kind of like what you had actually built and what you got out of that? Or do you have to do like live wireframing or something?
Yeah, so it all depends. The minimum work you got to do in interviewing would be they would ask you to present your work. So this is one thing I learned so much is how to present that work, because I got interviews and they asked me, let's look into your portfolio. And it's like, okay, show me your favorite project. And I just choose one that I really love that has no connection with the job at all and just show them. I don't even talk about, I would wait for them to ask me instead of me doing the presentation itself.
Right.
But for this role, I got asked to do a coding project, like a coding test, because they were looking into filling in one of the product design job roles with someone that had developer experience, and they just wanted to see. But then the task turned out to be really difficult, and over the weekend I tried my best. I emailed the manager and said, this is not something I can learn in the weekend, during the weekend. And they understood that. They said, just show us something related to it that we've worked on in the past. So they asked me to present at least 3 projects in a presentation setting with the other people in the team.
Cool. It seems like every interview is going to be a little bit different. There probably is not a very standard UX design interview at this point.
When we hire right now, I've learned that it's all like all these other tests are there to help you. So you could see it this way, like if you weren't asked, that means you have a really good portfolio that has shown enough for us to know that you can do the job. But if you don't, and we still think you're a good candidate, we'll give you a chance to show us more by giving you a test.
Cool. Okay, so 1 year later, and these are my last couple of questions for you. I promise to let you get back to your day. 1 year later, you started about a year ago, you had some front-end experience, you like tried to teach yourself some UX design, wasn't really working to try and teach yourself in like a one-person role. Was General Assembly worth it for you to actually, put your career on hold, pay $10,000 or $15,000, and spend the time to learn UX in a boot camp setting?
It's totally
on your own. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. When I got the job, like a week after I graduated, and I actually got 2 offers during that time. And once I got the offer, all my friends knew and was supportive when I went to General Assembly, and they all asked like, "Oh, it's worth it, huh?" I was like, "Totally worth it."
That's awesome. Well, and you're on the hiring side now.
Mhm,
You've been like interviewing folks that are applying for the job that you were applying for
mhm.
a year ago. So my last question, what advice do you have for people who are making the career change through a boot camp? Is there anything that you wish you had learned? Is there anything that that you suggest that somebody do to stand out in the UX like job process?
Yeah. I would say be sure to have a story.
Mm.
Whatever it is, you could be talking about yourself, make it in a sense so you're telling a story. When it comes to a project, make it a story, not just like enumerating the things I've done just to show you I can do these things. It's all in the story and how you present it. You might not have to present at all when you get the job, but this actually helps a lot of employers to see your thought process. Thought process is really important
Hmm.
in showing your projects, because if we just wanted to see your work, we could just look into your portfolio, but we want to see how you got there.
Amazing. Well, that is fantastic advice, Jamil. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing your project and all of your experience. I will let you get back to your job at Chase as a product designer. So thank you so much for joining. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Let us know in the comments who you would like to see in our next video Q&A. We will see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.